Today on the show, we have Jerome Lu. Jerome Lu is an illustrator and toy designer. A San Francisco Bay native, he is the creator of Hyperactive Monkey, which is a toy and design company that aims to please children of all ages. And most importantly, it is where all your Saturday morning adventures come true. When he's not busy drawing magical ideas, Jerome enjoys eating ice cream and potato chips with his two daughters and wife. Welcome to another episode of Origins. Thank you so much for being here, Jerome. It's great to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you guys.
So, we will start this off the way that we start all of our episodes. Can you tell us about your own creative journey? Tell us your origin story.
Oh, okay. Like the superhero story. In general, my earliest memory of being creative is my childhood babysitter that I had from like 3 to 6. And I just remember when I was like 5-ish, she had all these toys. And I think that's also played a big part of my creative journey. It's like she just had so many toys in her playroom. I just remember she had those, the Shogun Warriors, Mazinger Z and the Godzilla Shogun Warriors. Being 5 years old, like giant toys to us. I just remember we'd pick them up and we'd like use them as baseball bats and hit other kids with them. It was hilarious. That's something I remember very fondly. But also I remembered because we would do that kind of stuff, she was like, okay, let's put the toys down. And she would always say, like, let's do something more creative. And I remember she's like, we're just going to do like a drawing contest. All of us just draw right now and just draw whatever you want. And then we'll kind of just like pick a winner. And I remember it's like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. And I remember drawing like just, I still kind of remember what I drew. I was like really big on Batman at the time, the 1960s Batman. And I was like, oh, I want to live in his Batcave. So I drew like myself in this bat cave and it was really crude, but I drew all these little things. I spent like the whole afternoon on it. I just remember like, oh, this is really fun. And I remember at the end, she was like, hey, you're the winner, Jerome. You drew the best picture. But I think I was the only person that was like drawing all day. The rest of the kids kind of got bored and stopped. But that was like my earliest memory of being creative. And I think that's just me, like that translated just throughout my whole life. I've always been drawing. It wasn't really until I went to UCLA because my brother went there and I was like, oh, this is such a cool college. And I was just like, I want to go there, but I didn't have anything in mind. And I was there for 2 years and I didn't declare a major. And they're like, well, you got to pick a major. We're going to kick you out of school. You can't just go undeclared for 2 years. And I remember on that last semester before, I had to declare something, that last quarter, I took something called Nature of Design. It was by Robert Abel, who he was one of the first to introduce vector graphics to CGI. So him and his company were behind Tron. They did a lot of Disney stuff. And I remember he was telling me stories of like working with George Lucas and they're doing like these like animated Star Wars things. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then it wasn't until like you go home and you Google him, you're like, holy crap, this guy is like a genius. He kind of made this really lasting impression on me of like, hey, everyone's a designer in terms of like a designer is a problem challenger, someone who solves problems. It's not just necessarily ethically. It can be just like he was saying, like a teacher, a designer, because you have to design a curriculum to educate children. But I told him like, hey, I go into animation and I want to start my own animation studio and do all these cool things. And he's like, well, what's your target audience? And I want to animate and make these real wonderful creations for like the kids of all ages, not just the little ones, but like adults and everyone. So it's good. He's like, I love that. And he's like, that's what you got to focus on in your life. So he's like, just in case you don't get into grad school or whatever, animation, this kind of like kind of keep that essence, your belief of entertaining and creating creations for kids of all ages close to your heart. And the thing is, then I applied to the UCLA design program and I got in. And I loved it so much, I stayed there for like an extra year. So I took the 5-year college course. And I remember at that point, I was like, yeah, I'm going to apply to the animation schools. I'm going to Cal Arts and UCLA. And, those are the top film schools, animation program. And I remember I had even the animation instructor. And she's like, I'll write you a review. And my video professor, and he's like, oh, I'll get you in. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get in and I'm set. And then a few months later, I got a fat rejection letter from both schools. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Being Asian, My parents were like, you got to get a job. You can't just like, figure out. So I was like, okay. I happened upon a Craigslist ad for a branding and design agency, and they were looking for someone who could do packaging design. And I kind of was drawn to it only because they were specialized in kids food packaging. So there was a lot of food packaging for like Nestle ice cream. They did some candy bars, a lot of candy bars. And I was like, that seems kind of fun. So I got into that, and I did that for about 3 years. And I learned a lot, like how production-wise, on all the software, how things get printed. They go to factories, then you got to proof check all that stuff. And then I was getting kind of burnt out of that because they were phasing away from the kids stuff. And they decided to switch to more serious design. I was, at the end, I think I was doing like coffee bean and tea leaf posters, and it was like very dry, just not too thrilling for me. And so I remember going home one day and I turned on NPR, and they were talking about this crazy doll that was like taking the world by storm. It's called the Bratz doll. It's the sexy Barbie doll that was like the hottest toy at the market, and everyone was trying to buy one. And I was like, that sounds kind of cool. And I ended up Googling the company's name. It was called MGA Entertainment. And I realized, hey, they're down the street from where I am. I was living in LA at the time. I'm like, that's just a 10-minute drive. And I went to their website, and they were looking for a packaging designer. So literally, I remember I like called them on a Friday, and on a Monday, they're like, come in for an interview. And like the end of that Monday, they're like, if you want a job, you can have it. So I was there for another 2 years. And again, I was getting kind of strung out of doing packaging design. And I went to another toy company called Spin Master. And then I did package design for there about 2 years. And I was ready to leave and kind of move back to the Bay Area. But then they said like, hey, would you like to stay a couple more years and work on product design? And this whole time, I was also drawing my own stuff outside. But then I switched to product design and really kind of start to understand the process of how mass market toys are made. All this while, just like Peter Parker goes to the Daily Bugle and takes photos for them. At nighttime, even my first job at that design agency, I was just drawing my own creations, like my own monkeys. I guess that's where the start of Hyperactive Monkey came from. I was always drawing characters. And then I remember when I was at MGA, I remember like everyone gave out really nice Christmas gifts. And I was like, you know what? I want to do something really nice for the department. So I did like a t-shirt, and I gave everyone out a t-shirt, and it was like a little monkey head. It's the one I still use on my logo. And I remember people were like, oh, I love this t-shirt. Can I buy an extra one for someone? I was like, hey, there's a possibility there. And so I kind of was doing that side kind of art for fun, t-shirts and art prints while I was designing for big box toy companies. And in 2009, I left Spin Master and focused on Hyperactive Monkey full time. And like my wife says, it's a very expensive hobby, and didn't go on too long. And I ended up back just freelancing for the big toy companies. And I still fight crime at night as Hyperactive Monkey, doing all my side jobs and independent creations.
We've known each other for a while, was familiar with a lot of that, not some of the specifics, but it's really cool to hear that someone as big in the scene and as someone who a lot of people respect as a toy designer, packaging designer, illustrator, you do so much. You have such a breadth of work that is very much a staple of, I would say, at least only because I know it, is the California convention scene. It's like, oh, everyone knows who you are and has seen your booth, even if they don't know you. And at the same time, like, you still freelance. I think that would probably surprise a lot of people because the quality of your booth, the level of output you have, I think a lot of people would expect that you're doing this full time. Would you be able to share a little bit more about how you came to that decision and like what it's like? Because I think a lot of people have this idea that they see creators like you and they're like, oh, they totally are on the top of the world, making tons of money, doing it full time. Are you willing to kind of share with our listeners a little bit more about that?
Most definitely. I think it's funny that you said that, I'm a staple of California con scene. Everyone knows me. I think everyone knows me only because I'm still there. I'm still crazy enough to do this for so many years. I mean, rewind it, and we'll start at the beginning. Yeah, like I remember when I was at Spin Master, I was around the first DesignerCon. Was it 2005? I think the first DesignerCon was 2005. Yeah, it had just become DesignerCon, transitioned from VTN to DesignerCon, and I remember my coworker Nate from Squid Kids. He said, "Hey, we should do this con called DesignerCon. Can share a booth." He actually bought 2 booths, and he's like, "We'll share a little. You can have some of my second booth, and you can share some of your stuff." And I actually sold was just, I didn't have any toys because back then it was still kind of hard to make your own toys. There was people doing resins, but there was the independent companies, but it wasn't like, the resin scene hadn't quite taken off how it is now, and the independent vinyl and all that stuff wasn't quite there yet. And so all I had was like I brought two t-shirts designs, the ones that I gave out at my previous company, and like I did a new one, and I had a pack of postcards. And I remember that in 2005, I think DesignerCon it was outside in the Pasadena parking lot. And it had like a tent, and it was literally just 2 rows. It was like 50 feet, and you literally would set up at like 7:30 a.m. You set up in like 10 minutes because it was just a table. You put your stuff down, and then you'd run over to Dove's booth because he was selling like all his toys discounted price. I remember we were picking up like action figures for like $1, and I'm like, even before the con starts, Dove's booth is like empty because we all wipe it out of all the cool stuff he's just trying to unload. But I remember it's kind of like that thing. It's like, just put yourself out there. I think I made like $100 that day, I want to say. And I was like so excited. I'm like, yeah, I made $100. You know, someone actually bought my stuff. I was so excited. And then from there, from doing that and being at DesignerCon, and I think that's what's so great about DesignerCon, and at least the people I've been able to talk to, was never a gatekeeper for anything. They asked like, how do you make a toy? And they're like, oh, I'll show you how to make a toy. You talk to this person, you go here, and they've been really generous with all that knowledge. And another thing I think Dove mentioned that has always stuck to me is, I don't know if this applies to everyone, but it really stuck with me. It was like, you don't make a toy, like these in the background, to make money. It's not profitable. You make a toy of your own creation because you love the 2D design so much that you want to see it in 3D, and you want to share that with the world, and you get some sort of satisfaction like, as an artist, you know, not necessarily make money. And I think that's kind of like my approach. I love to create the figures and the toys and my characters. I want them to see, that's what I want, you know, my creations to be physical and to pick one up, and I want to share that with the world. It's up to them if they want to buy it. And I think, and that's kind of like you said, I would love for everyone to buy hundreds of my figures and I could retire, but that's not necessarily the truth. I have a small, I'll say, fan base. I continually buy myself, and that means a lot to me too. I'm forever grateful for that. And that's kind of how my business kind of approaches. But at the same time, by doing all these creations and characters and doing the cons, we get a lot of people that come by from other companies, big companies, that say like, hey, I really like that style. Would you like to work on a project incorporating your style? And that pays the bills. So it keeps the lights on over here. And that's kind of my approach has been since I went freelance. That's part of the struggle. It's like you're kind of in this limbo. You never get used to it. It's like some months you're like, oh, this is great. Work's flowing in. And then you go a month or two and it's like dry. And you're just like, oh no, what's going to happen? How are you going to get by the next few months? You know? But it always works out. And I think, you know, on those slow months are the months that I really can go back and focus on the Hyperactive Monkey creations and things.
Remember, to your point about everyone at DesignerCon being super supportive, and I think just the toy community as a whole, not gatekeeping and just sharing knowledge. I remember, like, I think one of the first times I visited your booth, I was asking you all this information about toys and getting Fubi made and everything. And you told me the exact same thing years ago about, yeah, it's like you do this because you love it. That love for your craft also shows through your work. And I think that's why I think studios can see that, or toy companies, and that's why they keep hiring you to keep designing for them. How do you think about the difference between, like you mentioned, some ways by doing the conventions, you are getting client work, which pays the bill. So you could argue that like doing the shows is part of the full-time gig, which is also designing packaging and toys. How do you kind of like parse the work you do for clients versus the work that you do for yourself?
That's a great question. Part of it is, to be honest, you're right. I think there's been a transition ever since I've gone kind of more professional freelancer and rely on freelance for income, is that it is still fun. I love doing DesignerCon. I love doing Comic-Con. But it has become, my biggest fear is I leave the booth, someone comes by and it's like, where's Jerome? I want to give him a job. And the truth is, the majority of my work has come from people and companies that have stopped by that just not even looking for me. They're just like, I love this style. Like, can you tell me about it? And then all of a sudden they'll give me a job. So that is, you're right. It is definitely part of the work and the job. You're right. It can be really tough because I have all these ideas that I want to use on my toys. But then sometimes the company's like, I love this style. Can you just take this and do it on this? I guess the stuff is I do a lot of licensed stuff. So it's like if I implement it on, say, like a Disney character, like I've done stuff for like Spider-Man and stuff. No, I could never sell Spider-Man on my own, get my own license and have to deal with that kind of fee for licensing. So I guess I would never have to do that. So I could pour all my style and energy into that version of Spider-Man that they're going to sell and that they pay me for. I guess that's the big thing also. I can't do fan art because a lot of my clients are like Hasbro, who do have Star Wars. They have, Marvel. And so there's a lot of like, hey, we pay you to do that. And we have the license for, why are you selling that on your own? I mean, I think if someone pays me for my style and my creation, then that's what I have to deliver. And I guess keep the stuff that's really close to your heart for yourself, and then you kind of do best you can without compromising that for your client.
Like the perfect right answer. Like, they're paying me for this, so I'm going to do this, which is in turn funding my creativity to do this.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's separating. And you do a great point too of how you separate it in your head to create it, right?
Right. Most companies know that what they're getting when they hire me too. That goes two ways. It's like, if I underperform, then it's like, well, can we do a little more like this? And I'm like, okay, we can do a little more like my personal work, and then I'll give it to them.
It's me. So I got to tell a little story before I ask you the question, and I apologize as always. So I'm brand new to our friendship. Met you 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were doing something for a company that will remain nameless with the guys from DesignerCon. And I'm like, I have this idea. If we can do this idea, the head of design for this big name company said he'll buy in, but we need to do X. And without missing a beat, Kai and Ben said, Jerome, like there was no hesitation on it. And I was like, really? Okay. Why? Because I don't know anything yet. And they said, oh, first of all, his quality, like Jerome is like the master, like he's so good and he's so professional. And two, his attitude. He just has the best attitude for what you want to do. And, even listening, talking to you now and your whole story, you just have the best attitude in life, just this whole love in life. I'm curious how you keep this high positive and this level of quality when, bills got to be paid and I don't have enough clients and I'm chasing my head around. How do you stay this wonderful human being and this creative person that you are?
I think it masks all the sadness and depression I have inside. Don't get me wrong, I get sad, I get depressed, I'm worried. I think I'm no different than any other struggling artist and designer and toy artist, or, whatever you want to call it. As a creative person, I think we all have this kind of, everything's coming on us. I just try to remain positive because I know that if I stress about it or I get deep down like depressed about it, it's not going to help me. It's not going to help my wife. It's not going to help my kids. Generally, I think I'm lucky enough. I get to work with the best clients. Like I said, Hasbro, Spin Master, all these different, not just toy companies. I work with other companies, and they give me really great projects, like Nice Kicks. I got to do Transformers, Super 7, He-Man, and Star Wars. And these are all things that make me happy. I think because I'm so positive about this work, that translates to the work. And it's kind of back to what my professor was always saying is, bring that joy to kids of all ages. And that's what I stick to. But I do get depressed and I do get worried. But again, I'm not that type of person just to like wallow in like, oh my God. I just rather power through that and be positive and get through it and then worry about it.
I have a question based on what you just shared, more so less on your outlook, which I think is fabulous. But I think for a lot of people, licensing or working on a lot of established properties is something a lot of people are interested in. A lot of people have no idea how that kind of goes about. And also, I was just wondering, I'm personally not familiar with your Transformers work. And so do you always bring your style to the license, or are sometimes you creating things kind of under a pre-established brand guideline that like I wouldn't be able to recognize as like, oh, that's obviously a Jerome Lu toy design?
They want me to incorporate my style into something that's established already. And I think, like you said, like how that got started, it's that weird double-edged sword. It's like, I don't like doing fan art just because sometimes to me it's low-hanging fruit, We all can draw a really cool Spider-Man, But at the same time, like the first thing was Super 7, we did the Star Wars shirt and that was licensed. And how that came about was they invited me to do one of their May 4th events at the San Francisco store. And it was really funny. He was the licensing manager at the time, Frank Supio. He's like, do you want to paint a mural? at our San Francisco store for May the 4th. And I'm like, yeah. And then he showed me the wall. And I'm like, oh my God, I've never done a mural. I've painted big paintings and I painted walls, but it was like the whole like office. First off, it's like, you want this done in a day, it's not going to happen. You know, I'm a one-man person. I was one person there. I can't do that. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just get a really big, I think it was an 8x5, 8x4 plywood from Home Depot. And I'm like, how about I'll start that at home and then I'll bring it to the store and I'll finish painting there and it'll be really fun. And he's like, yeah, yeah. So I did that and I was like finishing up the painting. I was, you know, painting it and like finishing it up at the store, and someone from Lucasfilm happened to be at that event. And I believe he said like, hey, when is that going to be on one of the shirts? And they're like, what? And it's like, oh, they hadn't thought about that. And then a few months later, like, yeah, let's put that on a shirt. And that happened. And I think that leads to like other things. Oh, you did like a Star Wars shirt. And then another company will see that. It's like, oh, can you do like something, other licensed property? I think, yeah, I guess you're right. It is kind of weird. So like, there's a funny story. Like I did this Robotech right here. There was a Voltron art show and I did an art piece for that. And it was for Bait in Melrose. And the president of Toynami, he bought that piece, the Voltron. And he was like, oh, I love this artist, Jerome. And he realized I had done a Robotech piece for another art show. And he's like, oh, I have the Robotech license. Would you like to do the toys? And that becomes, a lot of it's just by chance. And I think the other thing too was like Nice Kicks. It was like Nice Kicks, which is known for selling, you know, streetwear and shoes. They just happened to be at Comic-Con and someone came by and he's like, I love your colors. And he's like, oh, I was telling him about the toy process and everything and how I work. And he's like, oh, can you come by the office? Yeah, they were in Morgan Hill. So I went down there, told them like, oh yeah, this is what we do. And he's like, oh, we have the Back to the Future license and we want to get like a toy and some things done for it. And that didn't go anywhere. And I was like, oh, but it was nice talking to them. But then a few months later, they're like, we have the Transformers license. Would you like to work on that? And I did this whole capsule for Transformers. And then we launched it at Comic-Con. And from that, people see that, oh, you can do robots, you do all this stuff. And a lot of it's by luck. But then again, like licensing, like right now, one of my projects is as I work with DJ Lance Rock. And that was just, I had known DJ Lance Rock from when I was working at Spin Master. I worked on the Yo Gabba Gabba toy line packaging. And that's where I met him. And it wasn't until just a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that I said like, hey, there were never enough DJ Lance Rock toys and merchandise. We should just do DJ Lance Rock merchandise right now. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. It was simple as that. I think a lot of times, to be honest, yeah, I still get a kick drawing Star Wars and Spider-Man and all these superheroes, stuff for Marvel, stuff for DC. It's a total thrill and I love it. But I used to think that was like the ultimate goal, was to get like a licensed property and work on it. I love doing that stuff. But for me, the greatest joy is when you get to work on your own creation and put it out there. At least for me, creating my Ninja Monkeys and my Kung Fu Monkeys and people loving that and spreading that out in the world and people really enjoying that. I find that more fulfilling just because you're not so stuck on something that was like previously established, uncharted territories. Yeah, that's kind of my view. How I came about it, you know?
I love you, Jerome. I just love you. So you're making me think of two things. I have a friend who, I won't do the quote right, but he always says, life is luck. It's all about luck, but you have to be prepared for when it happens.
Yeah.
And you're an absolute truth in that. I'm here and they see this and then they see this and they see this. But part of that luck is you have to be prepared for luck. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? You have to do the work to be ready for when luck happens. And everyone has that thing that they're really good at and they're prepared for and that they're known at, so that when luck comes around, they're ready. Okay? So my question to you is, you're doing all this great stuff. What is your secret thing that when luck comes, that separates you?
I know I'm a decent artist. I think the thing is, at least professionally for me, is do things on time and the best of your capability. Like that is like the number one thing. If people know that you're reliable and that you deliver really good quality on time, I think that sets you up for a lot more opportunities. I think if your reliability and your work ethic exceed your artistic ability, you're still that's still a positive. Because I've heard people that are like great artists, but they never turn things on time, or they're just a hassle to work with. People don't want to work with them.
Creative director. I have some artists who have been the biggest names and the best artists, and we don't work with them again because they didn't deliver on time, right? Or they're late.
I think as a packaging designer, because we were always the last in line. As a packaging designer, you are the last in line before that product hits the shelf. So for me, that was the worst feeling for me, was like, I've actually finished this package. It's done. I've submitted it to the factory early. They are ready to press print. And the next thing I know, we get a change from the product department. Like, it's an action figure. This character changed from orange to green. And then I got to go back and change that. Then I'm already late, because now I got to resubmit the files, proof check them, change the colors, possibly do another photo shoot, and then I got to stay up super late, and then I got to deliver it. And the product person just is like, oh, you press one button, it turns the thing green. And it's like, no, it's easy for you, but so much trouble for me. And I think for me, I have a lot of respect for the people on the other end, because I know if they give me a deadline, I'm going to hit that deadline, because they want to make your life hell. It's just because they have probably some deadline too that needs to hit, and they're depending on me. I want to deliver, And I think just also having like kind of that positive attitude. I get stressed. Like sometimes I get rush jobs, and it's like, we need this in a day. Can you do it? And it's like, oh, I can. I'm stressed. I'll figure out a way. I'll do it. And then I'll be positive about it. And then I'll curse you out afterwards, after I submit it. But you won't hear that from me.
The rush jobs. I think every professional creative knows those looming deadlines and like people changing things last minute. And you're like, but now I have to change everything because you tweak one thing. What do you think is the most difficult part of your job, whether that's freelancing or on the creative end, or on your own brand that you've built, Hyperactive Monkey? What do you think is the hardest part of making all of this?
Every job I take, whether it's my own work or professional work, there's a great deal of stress involved. It's like, am I going to do a good job? And ask for a crazy illustration or something, or a crazy design. Like, how do I do this? How do I do this? And part of that, I feel like if I don't have that kind of stress, then I know that I'm not going to give them 100%, because I need to overcome that kind of fear and give like 150% to get over that hump. And then I know, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to figure out how I deliver it. And I think that's my biggest fears. So for like my personal stuff, is like, if I make a toy, like, this is my latest one. It's like my little sister of the cosmos, right? I did this as like a tribute to like He-Man and She-Ra toys that I grew up. Those are like my favorite toys, is He-Man and the She-Ra toy line. I love those. That's like my favorite toy line ever. And it's like, well, I want to make something that's kind of a tribute to that. These are the things I love. But will anyone else love that? You don't know. You don't know how it's going to respond. And I think that's with anything I do, especially when you're at like DesignerCon or Comic-Con, because you are among some of the best creators, most talented artists in the world. And you're showcasing your stuff. I feel like everyone's watching you. Like, it's going to be well received. And I think that's kind of my biggest like creative struggle. Is I know I love it. I'm proud of my work, but will other people like it, enough to buy it, in terms of professional? Similar too, it's like designing something really cool for someone and I like it, but will they, I think that's just kind of my biggest struggle and fear, is that I'm able to deliver both personally and professionally.
You're right too, what you're saying. As a creative person, that's like one of the drivers and one of the motivators, and you built something from your heart, as you keep saying, right? And you want everyone to feel the way you feel. Like, that's the love, right?
Yeah,
it's a great way to tackle it all. But I want to get back to Hyperactive Monkey, because your stuff is so much fun. It really, really is. So when you get Transformers or Back to the Future, creating something for Hyperactive Monkey, what makes you decide? Because you probably got like 8 million things in your book, right? Okay, what makes you decide this is the one I'm going to build now, or I'm going to use this one, right? For Hyperactive Monkey, what's the thing you go, I have limited amount of time, I'm going to pick this thing out of all my stuff?
I think, like all of us, we have, like you said, we have 8 projects, up to like hundreds of projects in our head. And it's like, how do we choose the next one? I think for me, it's like, it usually reflects what stage I'm at life. Cause like before I had kids, I'm just gonna make like gruesome toys and crazy things. And it's like, then I had 2 kids and it was like, okay. And I see a lot of their stuff. So that's why I did like Sister of the Cosmos, these 2 figures that are kind of like She-Ra, He-Man. But if I was a kid at that age, even though these aren't obviously made for like 6-year-olds or 10-year-olds, but I just think like, what would have wanted to play with at the time? I have 2 girls, so I make 2 girl action figures that are like really strong and kind of represent the qualities I see in them. I'll be honest, and we know what sells too. Like it's hard to sell a toy in general, but like books sell really well. So we always try to do a kid's book. Me and my wife always try to create a kid's book that we try to at least do 1 a year, even if one is just kind of like an art book. We try to always do 1 a year because we know that sells and that is very accessible. A parent might see like one of our resin toys or soft loopy toys, but they'll go like, $50. That's expensive for a kid that wants. So that's what we do. We have plush, we have stuff that's geared towards kids of all ages, and we know that books are really accessible for parents and kids to get into our world without trying to take all their money. The big struggle too is how do you decide? Much of it is price point too. It's the truth of the matter is like, I want to create a $100 action figure, but I know what our stuff caters to is to get a lot of kids, a lot of families that come by our booth that buy our stuff. I always feel bad. I've seen it. I've seen that kid that's like, I want that. And then I tell them that's like $50 or $60. And then like, oh, I can't afford that. So we always try to do something that's affordable for kids of all ages. We've had adults that like, I want to buy something, but I don't have kids, so I won't get them a kid's book. We have like little stuff we sell for like $5 to $10 that you can always take, like pins or something. So hopefully that answers your question.
That always breaks my heart when the little kids come up to the thing. And I had one at this last show and they wanted the $450 toy. And I was like, I'm so sorry, small child.
I know.
And like parents, everyone, I'm just sorry.
I know. I mean, that's the thing too, is rewinding back to the origins of Hyperactive Monkey was I always wanted to be a high-end collectibles, like streetwear, like Bathing Ape. I was like really into Bathing Ape for a while. Like they've got it. They're selling $60 t-shirts and their toys are hundreds of dollars. There's 1 year where I hit up every single con in like Northern and Southern California. And we did like kind of even the ones that weren't quite geared toward us, like I think it was like the new unique LAs and all that kind of stuff, just to try out. The number one thing was like, I'm gonna sell this $40 t-shirt and then, this $100 resin toy. And the first thing is you get kids that come by and it's like, oh, I want a shirt. And it's like, oh, that's a $40 t-shirt, and they're like, what? My t-shirt's $10. And it's like, you feel just so bad. And then just realizing that I had to change, that my business plan had changed, was let's try to we used to do a lot of apparel. So we did do a lot of more kid-friendly shirts and kind of priced them down and tried to do more affordable things for kids. And like we do like the plush, that kids can get and easily accessible. Sorry, going full circle, I wanted to do streetwear and all this stuff. And then it's funny, many years later, like Nice Kicks, Bait, all the top streetwear companies asked me to do work for them on all their stuff. And it's been a trip and I'm always honored. I kind of made it a roundabout way.
I really think you are living from your heart and from that initial idea of making something for people of all ages. Speaks to that of you rethinking your pricing structure and even what you're making to make things more accessible for people. Like you said, you were able to make that full circle where you have designed for huge streetwear companies. What advice would you give to other creatives who are just starting out on their own journey?
I'm still learning myself. I always feel it's hard and I understand, but really put yourself out there. I understand doing Comic Cons and designer cons, it's not cheap. It is definitely not cheap. But at the same time, that's where you learn the most. If you can't vend, at least go and ask as many questions as you can. Like no one's ever said no to me, luckily, in terms of, collaborations or just finding out how things get done. And I think that's the one thing you gotta do as a creative. Don't take no as an answer. Just keep putting yourself out there. Stay humble too. No one likes it when you're too overconfident and too braggy. But I think the toy art community, They're very close knit and they want to see people succeed. No one wants to see anyone fail. And I think just asking questions, even if it's, it's not even just toys, like how do you bend? One of the greatest comments my whole con experience, it came from my brother. It was like, hey, you might want to invest a couple $100 in your booth display. Could be a little bit better. So yeah, I think that really did help. I noticed the next year that I put in some good furnishings and some professional shelving and got the risers and everything got a little bit better. I think also, my end is I've been lucky enough to work with so many great people because they didn't say no. Like I remember, I think you bought one too. It was one of my favorite projects, my little Safubi with Skinner, and then I love Skinner. He's an awesome dude. He's an awesome friend. And I remember he was one year next to me at WonderCon and I was like amazed by all his stuff. And I was like, oh, I would love to work with him one day. So weird because his style is so opposite of mine. But I was always so nervous. I was like, oh, it's Skinner. I don't want to ask him. And then it was like a few years later, he was just passing by the booth and he said hi. And I'm like, hey, Skinner, do you want to do a collab? And he's like, yeah, man, let's do it. And I was like, no, is he really mean it? And then, yeah, I hit him up like after DesignerCon. He's like, let's do it, man. And I'm like, here's the little monkey template I did. You want to draw like over it and we'll get it sculpted and we'll do it in Japan. He's like, yeah. And so he got super excited about it too. And we came out with this and then, people love it. And it's one of my favorite projects I've gotten to work on with someone because he's so awesome. He was so willing to help. And that's what I think. You just got to take the risk and the chances and put yourself out there. I think that's the best advice I can hopefully give.
That is like the best advice you could give anybody. Because I come from the school, I keep using it all the time on this podcast, creative tension. Like the best stuff is when you have that creative tension with other people and everything else. And you're right, this community, and I'm the new guy into this world, this community, is just, everybody's so positive and everyone wants to help. And we're all not trying to make $1 million. It would be nice in this community. I'm curious, Jerome, who motivates you? Who inspires you? Like, you've mentioned a few people.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I ask is for other people to find them or reach out. And I believe that when we share our influences, we make the world a better place and more creative, better people.
I was talking with, with the whole thing about, we'll bring it back to DesignerCon. It was like, I've met so many people at DesignerCon, like Rick, like you, Chris, that you guys can ask me anything. And I feel like I can go to you guys to ask anything too. And I think I have asked Rick on a couple of things too. You guys become like a family. And on that note, there's like Tony Blee and Chris Lee. The Beast is Back in Tony Blee fan club. They are like two artists that I greatly admire. And it's funny because I met them through the cons and we become very close friends. And I don't think there's a day we have a Discord group, of course, and there's not a day that we don't go by texting each other. There's times that we'll discuss professional things on art, things on design, but most of the time we're just talking about Fast and the Furious. Let's talk about random stuff. And I think that's what's so great is that you make friendships through this con experience of asking how to get help on professional things. But a lot of times these people come into your lives and they become like family. You can really rely on a lot of these people, not just for professional advice, but also just like personal friendship too. To that note, also, that's how do I stay so positive is that you do have this network of friends that I'm lucky enough that I admire so much on like a creative level. Like, oh, these are like titans of design and toy design and art. But at the same time, they're also friends that can help me on a personal level, just get through my personal struggles or emotions. And that keeps me positive and makes me happy and able to continue my work. That's what I love about like this kind of the toy scene art community in general, at least that we've been able to be a part of. Everyone's just so great, Even like this podcast, I feel like it's like useful. It's like, where was this years ago?
Do that. I mean, no. I thank you for saying that, Jerome, because I mean, that's really why Chris and I wanted to do this, is just because I think these types of conversations that we can have about, talking shop and stuff, a lot of people should listen to your advice and just talk to other artists. But I think a lot of people are really scared to ask these questions in person at a convention and they're just like, "Oh, I love your stuff." And then you're going to scurry off as opposed to really asking the questions and then going out and doing it and building community and all of that.
Like you said, you will encounter no's, but you just move on from that. Like I think just like when I was making Safubi, like I'd ask certain people, it's like, hey, I don't want to disclose my. It's like, okay, and then I ended up freelancing for a video game company, PowerCore, and Don Datadove from Fig Lab was also working at that company, and then he's like, oh, you want to make Safubi? I know Corey. Corey will help you. He's just as simple as that. And it was like, oh, okay, there's no gatekeeping. So I feel like that too. It's like, you're right. It's just for every no, you just move on and someone will say yes and help you out.
When you do these, everything, Jerome, I'm going to make you do one negative today. I'm going to make you go out of character. What's been the biggest challenge or hurdle for you to get over to do this stuff? If I was a little kid and Jerome, I want to be the next you, what's the one thing I should look out for? What's the one hurdle? Tell your younger self, don't do this.
There's a couple here. I would say don't buy so much toys. Save money so you can make your own toys. I would say that because I've had to sell a lot of my toys because I'm like, oh, this is just collecting dust. Why did I ever buy this? I should have saved that money to make my own stuff. But I think, what would I tell my younger self and like what to watch out for? I think a lot like what we are just kind of saying is don't get so set on your ways. Like I only wanted to do animation. I feel if I had followed that, I probably would have been limited in where my career, both professionally and creatively, goes, which is great now too. It's also all full circle. Like working with DJ Lance, like what was so great was we did a kids book and then Lance ended up doing a stage show a few summers ago at Knott's Berry Farm. Every summer he did like a summer residency and they needed animation for his stage show. And they're like, Jerome, can you do the animations? I'm like, yes, I'll do the animation. And so we did. It was awesome. All his little stage show. I did a lot of the animations while he was on stage and came all full circle. Like we were saying, like, don't get so set on one path and then it can limit your views. Because I was trying to just really focus on animation for so many years. And I was like, oh, maybe if I had just kind of branched out more, I could have been a little more well-versed. It all turned out great, but keep an open mind. And again, DesignerCon, super awesome. DCon, we were part of the DesignerCon Dunny series, and that was a great dream job. But as grateful as I am for that, I am forever grateful. I make my own toys. I think some people love to buy them. We sold out a couple, and that brings me a great amount of joy too. And don't get caught up with just like one audience and one goal in mind. Be open to all the possibilities. I would say is the best advice I could give to my younger self. And don't buy so many toys.
Such good advice. Don't buy so many toys so you can make your own.
So you can make your own. Yes.
To be honest, Jerome, that's why I missed some of your Zom drops because I was saving up for my own toy. So at least,
I always.
But I should buy yours, but not. No.
I kept a couple.
No, this has been awesome, Jerome. Thank you so much for all the wisdom and time and sharing and your openness to really share so much about your journey here. Where can people find you? Where's the best place to find more about you and your journey in Hyperactive Monkey?
You can check out hyperactivemonkey.com, kind of professional. You can see like all the big projects and the personal projects. Hyperactive Monkey, the Instagram account, for the longest time was like taken by some girl in Sweden. It was like this like blonde girl in Sweden. And it was like always vacation photos. And I was just like, oh man, she got it before me. And so finally she abandoned it and like it was up. I remember I grabbed it, right? But I already had like so much stuff on my personal account that I was like, oh, I update it occasionally, but like Jerome Monkey is where you could see a lot of like my personal stuff and professional again, and a lot of my kids' photos and my daily life with my kids, because those are my greatest creations, my things that I'm most proud of all the toys and things I've done. They're also the most hyperactive. So
that's one of the reasons I love following you on Instagram is your whole family thing and the toy thing and your whole personality actually comes out, as stupid as this sounds, on an Instagram stuff, but great follow.
Can you tell my parents and my wife, they're like, you're on your phone all the time. I'm like, it's work. But the funny thing is, it truly is. People like DM me like work jobs. They'll put the whole creative brief in a DM and I'm like, okay, and I get it. We'll do a whole job through DMs, and I'm like, this is legit work. It's truly like I'm on social media working too. But a lot of time, yes, I'm looking at random stuff on
But it's true. A couple of people I do legitimate business through it. And my daughter will be like, "You're on Instagram again."
Or it's research. I always say it's research. It's research. I'm on Instagram for research. Looking at what other people are doing and how they're doing it.
You never stop working. And I'm so glad you did this show, because no joke, when Rick and I were sitting in the parking lot of 3D Retro deciding to do this thing, and you'll make fun of me for this, I said, we gotta get the monkey guy. And Rick's looking at me going, monkey guy? Yeah, the monkey guy. He's freaking awesome. I love the monkey guy. He's Hyperactive Monkey.
Oh, no, I'm the monkey guy. I mean,
You were I was like, I was so excited. I couldn't think of your name or anything. It was just the monkey guy.
I'm just like,
the monkey guy.
Do you mean Jerome?
Like, I like it's Jerome, the monkey guy. No, I love it. No, I mean,
yeah, that guy.
No, I mean, that's why I love, like, like, I'm not gonna say no. This is how all the conversations, like when I'd ask people at DesignerCon back in 2005, like, this is the information they would give me. They're very open, and I think that's what's so great.
So we always end this show, we give our guests their final thoughts to share with everybody. So the floor is yours.
Oh, final thoughts.
Yeah.
Like on anything?
It's an open mic. It's all you, baby.
Oh man. I guess we'll have to take it back to Fast and the Furious. Like, I guess Fast and the Furious is parallel and mirrors Hyperactive Monkey. See, the first movie started out of them just stealing DVD players off of big rigs, right? That's like me. I was just trying to sell $5 t-shirts, right? And then now in Fast and the Furious, what, 10? 9, they went to space. 10, I don't even remember what happened. 10, all I know, it was amazing. It's like me. Where is Hyperactive Monkey 10 going to go? No one knows, and that's what's so great about this journey. Nobody knows. I'll end with this, like what the greatest philosopher, Dominic Toretto from Fast and Furious says: I don't have friends, I got family.
Thank you for joining Rick and myself on another episode of Origins, A Creative Journey, a DesignerCon production. Please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, download and listen to us every place you get your favorite podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Origins, A Creative Journey, all one word. Drop us an email for thoughts, ideas, or maybe somebody you'd like us to interview at dconpodcast@gmail.com. And make sure you join us in Las Vegas for DesignerCon, North America's premier annual design convention. All the information can be found, including tickets, at designercon.com. Till then, enjoy your own creative journey.